Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and today we're going to make 5 emergency cards using the Spellbinders Quick and Easy Card Kit for May 2023. I also am showing you, look at this embossing folder. Look, I'm showing you all of the other club kits for May. I don't usually do this, but I am absolutely in love. This little airplane, like that's the small die, it's $15. It's free shipping. You get 10% off the rest of your Spellbinders orders for the month. This is the large die of the month. And then this Glimmer, it cuts out that balloon to make a shaker. And then it has these Glimmer sentiments that fit in the middle of the balloon. And then you can get even more savings when you get a couple of clubs at a time. I think I'm getting the Glimmer and cut this month. I would get the total package, but I already have this card kit, which I love. So I have a panel of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Some pattern paper that is 4 by 5 1/4, and we are going to start making our card. If you want to see what all comes in the Spellbinders Quick and Easy Card Kit, I will link to the unboxing video I did on the 1st of the month in the description box below. I'll also link all of the clubs and the bundles where you can save just a boatload of money. I can't even tell you, I am so excited about all these clubs. Anyway, so I have glued my panel to my card base and my pattern paper to my panel. And now I'm just adding some of these die cut shapes. It's my favorite thing about these kits is they have just a boatload of die cut shapes with some gold foil accents every time. I try to stick to the contents of the kit for the most part, but I always bring in my circle punches. So you could certainly use dies, but I have a 2-inch circle that I have already glued to my card base. And then I will bring in my 1 3/4 inch circle punch as well. I put out on the 1st and 15th of every month a free printable with a whole bunch of sentiments by theme. So this is from the very first volume 1 of the emergency card kits. And there are a bunch of birthday sentiments in there. So for me, when I make cards to keep in my stash, I find it really useful to have a spot on there for a sentiment that can be changed. So when I adhered that sentiment, I used some temporary adhesive so I can always change that up later. For this second card, I have a panel that is 1 3/8 by 5 1/2, 2 strips of pattern paper that are 1 1/2 by 5 1/4. And then that green piece in the background is just my A2 panel. The card kit comes with 20 A2 panels of cardstock, so you can use those on your card, or like I use them also to punch out the circles for my sentiments. I will link at the very end of this video the playlist for all of the emergency card kit sentiments. So if you're new to the channel, you can kind of go check that out. Again, they're totally free to download, and I walk through all kinds of different ways that you can make different cards and layouts. My goal for this video was to show you some new layouts that I haven't put in the card kits yet. I love this one. So my strip of cardstock going down the middle is actually going to overlap those 2 pieces of pattern paper very slightly. And I love that. And then you could actually stick your sentiment circle anywhere on that panel that you want. I really liked it in the middle because these 2 flowers are some of my favorite die cut pieces in the entire kit, right? I just thought they were really, really stunning. And so I'll hang that one kind of off the bottom. We'll trim that off later. And then I am going to pop up my sentiment circle with some foam adhesive. These are from Spellbinders. There is some foam adhesive in the kit, but it's got a good lift to it. And I like a really thin foam. These are 1 millimeter foam squares. And so, yeah, that's just my personal preference, but certainly you could use what's in the kit instead. All right, so now I'm going to bring in another sentiment. This one is from the thank you sentiments. I thought those flowers are kind of elegant, so I like this with gratitude. That gratitude, something about that font I just love so, so much. And that finishes up card number 2. You don't have to have the kit to use that layout, right? So that's my goal for you. For this next card, I have my A2 colored cardstock, and then I have this skinny little strip. It's like maybe a 1/4 inch. It might be a little thinner than that, just a thin strip. This piece, I'm just gonna hold this here for you for a second. I started at 4 by 4 3/4. I started in one corner and just cut diagonally. Like I didn't really measure it before I cut it. And actually I thought I was gonna use the bottom piece, but it was smaller than I wanted. So we used the top piece. You can certainly just look at the heights of each, the tall side and the short side, and cut it to match mine, but it's not that big a deal. So I am gonna add my little skinny strip right to the very edge of this pattern paper. And then I will trim that off. I didn't want that strip going all the way off the edge of my card. I thought it looked a little cleaner this way. So I'm gonna bring in my scissors and I'm just gonna trim it pretty easy. And then I will add that to my card base, and I'm looking to create an equal margin on the 3 sides, right? Both sides and the top. And that will leave me some space down at the bottom. I love that that gave me the perfect place for my frag prints. I mean, why not? You wouldn't have to put anything in that space, but you could do a stamped image. You could do a little die cut critter. There's this raccoon that shows up on so many of my cards. He'd be great in a space like that. I'm adding some more thin foam squares to my 2-inch circle. I ran out of the white ones, so I'm using my black ones. I need to order more. And then there's this little bitty dragonfly. When you get the thin foam squares from Spellbinders, there are also some small squares, not just those big ones. So I doubled them up under the one wing, and then I put glue under just the middle of his body, so that now when I go to add my removable adhesive and I tuck this sentiment under that wing, I would still be able to pull that out and replace it with something else if I decide I want it for a different occasion. There are also a bunch of chipboard stickers that come in this kit, so I grabbed one of those. I always add a little extra glue to the back because they don't make stickers like they used to. And then that way I know it's not going anywhere. For our next card, I have my card base, and then this piece measures 4 by 5.5. And then I have 3 1/4 by 4 3/8. I have punched 2 circles out of that, and it's going to work just fine. This piece is 3 by 4 1/4. I sprayed that with some Sukaneko shimmer spritz, but you could use a shimmer pen or you could skip that altogether. I wanted that blue piece just to be a matte on 3 sides for this white piece. And so since I'm sticking cardstock on top of cardstock, it's totally fine that I am missing a couple of circles out of the middle. It would probably not be fine if I was using this pattern paper. This is a layering weight. It's not super thick, and I wouldn't want it to end up kind of crushed in there. So cardstock on cardstock, yes. Paper on cardstock with holes in it, maybe not. So I've added my large piece of pattern paper, and I just have a strip on either side. It's 1/8 of an inch that are my card base. And then I'm adding that blue and white layered piece all the way up at the top. There are a handful of banner pieces. There's 2 like this one, and then there are 2 that are rainbows, and I just love them. So I'm going to string that along the top, and I'm going to add my sentiment circle kind of right underneath that, but you wouldn't have to have a banner or something. It's just fun, right? Then I'm adding a little dragonfly and one of the chipboard pieces here. You could add little stamped images. You could add other die cut shapes, but I love the layout of just this, the blue and white piece that kind of sticks all the way up at the top. I really enjoyed that. So you can use that layout in lots of different ways. Now I'm adding this "You Are Freaking Awesome," one of my favorite sentiments because you can use it for almost anything. I used to not put my greeting on there at all, but then I was struggling to like find some that I'd actually printed out. So now I put at least something on there temporarily. So I have my A2 panel, and this piece is 3 by 5.5. And then I have these strips. They are just skinny and matching. They're maybe 1/8 of an inch, but if I'm honest, I can't cut 1/8 of an inch matching strips in one go. So I think I cut 3 or 4, and then I just grabbed the 2 that looked closest. I have added my A2 panel, and now I'm going to add this strip right down the middle. Again, I really love this layout as something that's really, really versatile. I wanted to make that pop just a little bit. I just didn't want to use an entire piece of cardstock to mat that. So instead, my little strips are going to go on the very edges of that panel that I put right down the middle. I just think it makes such a huge difference when you have like a dark color next to these two pale colors to make everything stand out. For my greeting, I used some black cardstock from my stash to cut out my 2-inch circle. But if you don't have that, cut it out of, there's some white in this kit. Cut it out of white and just use a Sharpie or an alcohol marker or whatever you've got. And just, you only have to mark around the edges because you're going to put a sentiment in the middle of it. I popped this up with some foam because I want to be able to tuck some of these little pieces underneath it. I thought for a little bit about using the very small squares to pop up all of these elements, but in the end, I was like, nobody wants to watch me peel the backing off of a bunch of tiny little die cut pieces. But there are tons of them. This isn't even all of the little bitty pieces that are in there. Some of these are silver foil gold hearts, and then the little like crisscross detail that's on some of these circles, those are gold foil. They're really stunning. I decided to make it easy on myself, and I am just putting dots of glue sort of across from each other, mirroring each other almost, but on opposite sides. So I don't have to worry about failing on one side and liking one side more than the other. I put this little navy blue one on there, but I didn't like it. So I pulled it back off while it was still wet. To me, wet glue is your best option here, but you know, whatever glue you have. There is some double-sided adhesive tape in the kit as well. I just like wet glue, so I use mine instead. You can get that Barely Art from Spellbinders, and I will try to link that as well. I've pulled out my Get Well sentiments, and this one says, I hope you feel better soon. I like to keep mine on the sheet instead of punching them all out. It's easier for me to find everything that way. But that will finish off this card. And I hope that you like these. I hope these layouts are useful for you. We've made 5 cards today, and each of them is just another way to utilize your emergency card kits. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.